Hey guys, it's Marc the Bruin from simplifyinglife.com.au. Today I'd like to share an idea with you that actually has its roots in chemistry or in physics, whatever you want to call it, but actually is quite applicable in counselling and psychology as well. It's the concept of activation energy. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. I came across it a couple of years ago when I was reading a book or actually listening to the audiobook version of it. But in chemistry and physics, it's the amount of energy that's required to actually initiate, or the least amount of energy that's required to initiate a chemical reaction. So that's what they call activation energy. But when we use it in counseling and psychology, it's actually meant to describe the amount of energy you, as a person, need to exert to begin something. I'll give you an example. If you are wanting to lose some weight, you'll have to start doing something, begin something in order to get that process underway. Now that could be, for instance, going to the gym or adjusting your eating pattern or a combination of the two, or going to the doctor and actually find out what other ways are there. But in order to get that process started, you'll have to do something. Now that was part of what I was always reading in that book. It's a book by Shawn Achor. He's a really interesting guy. He's a Harvard researcher. But what he wanted to do is become fit. And for him, ways of becoming fit was to start exercising a bit more, actually start running. What he found that the problem was is that he had all sorts of motivation not to go running, because obviously he would have to put his shoes on, he have to get in his running gear, he would probably have to get up a little bit earlier. He would have to do all these things in order to get that process started that he thought, well, not only thought, but for him it became this insurmountable thing that he just couldn't get across. Way easier to just lay in bed and stay there. So in everything in life, it works that way. If you want to make a change, change is not easy. Change can be hard, and it needs to be done by starting something that you haven't started before, and that requires activation energy. And again, it doesn't matter what you want to do. If you've been depressed and you want to start improving your life so your depression goes away, or if you've had an anxiety bout or an episode where you feel you're anxious and want to overcome that and actually make an appointment with a counsellor, for instance, it requires energy. So how do you use this concept of activation energy to actually get things done in life? Well, the more activation energy you have to exert in order to get things started, the more likely it is that you will procrastinate. So let me repeat that one. The harder it is to actually get things started, the more it'll be likely you won't do it. And that's pretty normal with everything. I had the same thing. That was my mind bell in the background, my mindfulness indicator. I've had the same thing when I decided to become healthier and do some fitness stuff. I had to grab my gear, go to the gym, actually drive there for 20 minutes, and with my personal trainer. And it's a hard slog. So in order to actually get things done or get things started, let's put it that way, what you want to do is make the amount of activation energy you have to exert as low as possible, as small as possible. So the small amount, or the smaller the amount you have to exert, the easier it is to actually get things started and keep it up. So in Shawn Achor's case, the guy I talked about earlier, his running, and he went to extremes, but he said, look, I want to start running because I know it's going to make me healthier. And I know I'll procrastinate in bed in the morning if I have to put too much activation energy into getting ready for running. So what he decided to do for, I think it was about 3 weeks, is actually sleep in his running gear. Okay, that's extreme. But he slept in his running gear and he put his running shoes and socks right beside his bed. So whenever the alarm clock would go, that would be his time to actually sit up, put his shoes and socks on and go, because he was already in his running gear. So the amount of activation energy that he had to spend was fairly low, fairly minimal. And that's something that actually is a clue to using activation energy to your benefit. So lower the amount of energy or the amount of things that you have to do in order to get something started, the more likely it is that you'll actually do it. There's a famous study, I can't remember from what year, but it was a study done with people living in England or in London, I think, who, and it's something I've known for myself while I was still living in the Netherlands, that usually tourists visit all the important things and the interesting sites in a country or in a city, and the locals hardly ever do. Now, why is that? It's activation energy. It's the amount of energy people have to expend or exert in order to get something done. And there was a direct connection between, for instance, not having enough time, tourists, because they're only there for a couple of days, and the willingness to expend that energy in order to see the sights, compared to the people that were already living there and had so much time on their hands, generally, weekends or whenever, but then the amount of energy that they had to expend to actually go to the sites was so high that they wouldn't do it. And it's a classic. I know that when I lived in the Netherlands, I never got to see all the sites. It was actually after I emigrated to Australia that I went back to Holland and with my very best friend did an interesting tour around the place and found all these beautiful spots that I'd hardly ever been to. It's a classic. Everyone, I don't know everyone, but a lot of people told me they had the same experience when they moved out of the country. So again, summarizing, activation energy is the amount of energy that you have to spend to get something going. The lower the amount of energy you have to spend to get something going, a new habit, a new routine, the more likely it is that you will do it. The reverse is also true. If you know you have a habit that's actually not that great, eating chocolate, drinking too much coffee or alcohol, or eating or drinking other stuff, or surfing Netflix or the internet, or watching Netflix in binge sessions or whatever it is, you want to increase the level of activation energy. So it becomes harder for you to do it. I'll give you an extreme example. If you think you are prone to watching Netflix in binge sessions too often, then put away the remote. Make it so hard for you to actually get the remote that it's not really worth it of finding it anymore. I think Sean Akerwood did something like that as well. He put the remote so far away that he would have to walk towards it, and you'd put it about 20 meters away from the television and actually get it. So to stop watching it from television, watching television. Now that's a simple example. But you want to increase the level of activation energy that's required to do that task. For me, a simple one, for instance, to not get sidetracked on the computer is not to leave, for instance, Facebook open. Just leave it shut. And sometimes don't even put it in your favorites bar or up the top in Google Chrome where you can just click it. Just don't have it there. So you have to go through certain movements or motions in order to get it up. That requires activation energy. It could actually make it more easy for you not to do so. Your phone, leave it somewhere, not next to you on the couch. Just leave it somewhere else where you actually have to get up and get it. And that might make it harder for you, or it will make it harder, and it might make it less interesting for you to actually pick the thing up and watch it, look at it, or put some sort of code in that you have to do, some sort of swipe pattern to unlock it. That's actually really hard. It might all help. So in short, lower the activation energy, so make it easier on yourself if you want to change behavior that you think is going to be good for you, or change it to a new routine. Raise the level of activation energy that's required to get something going if you want to stop a behavior that has been really simple up until now, and then see what happens. It's a fascinating concept. Read up on it, because I know I work a lot with it with people with mental health problems as well. To small changes that are easily done and easily instigated can often lead to great results. And that's another video. Small steps to big results. It works that way. Make it easier on yourself to do the good things. Make it hard on yourself to do the not so good things. So I hope that was helpful. Any questions, you know where to find me. Email me, Facebook me, find me anywhere. And look forward to speaking with you again. See ya.